There is a strange kind of mental silence that happens when clutter is gone. Your hand reaches for your keys, and they are exactly where they should be. Your eyes move across the room and nothing pulls at them. No half-open drawer. No cup from yesterday. No shirt sitting on the chair like a tiny accusation. And for a second, it feels like the room is not asking anything from you. When people see someone who keeps their space clean, they often assume that person has more discipline, more willpower, more self-control. But what you are looking at is not moral superiority. It is not a better personality. It is not some secret gene for being responsible. They have crossed a psychological threshold where the room no longer runs their mind in the background. Your brain does not experience your home the way you think it does. It does not walk into a cluttered room and simply say, "There are objects here." It starts processing. A jacket on the chair becomes unfinished data. A pile of paper becomes an open tab. A sink full of dishes becomes a visual demand. Your nervous system has to keep indexing while you are trying to think about something else. This is cognitive load. And the uncomfortable part is that cognitive load does not always feel like thinking. Sometimes it feels like heaviness. Sometimes it feels like avoidance. Sometimes it feels like you are mysteriously tired before you have done anything meaningful. A well-known Princeton University study found that physical visual clutter competes for your attention and taxes the visual cortex. In simple terms, the more irrelevant objects your eyes have to filter, the less clean bandwidth your brain has left for focus, memory, and information processing. So when you stare at your desk and cannot begin, that is not always laziness. Sometimes your visual system is already spending energy deciding what not to look at. The mug, the receipt, the cable, the book you meant to return. The small object you do not even care about but cannot fully ignore. Each one becomes a tiny background process. And this is why an organized room can feel calming in a way that is hard to explain. It is not just prettier, it is neurologically cheaper. The clean room does not keep interrupting your attention with unfinished loops. It does not force your brain to run constant background checks. It gives your nervous system fewer open files. But here is what most people miss about this. People who keep their space clean are not always trying to impress anyone. They are not necessarily obsessed with aesthetics. They are often protecting a very specific psychological resource. Control. Not the harsh kind, not the anxious kind where everything has to be perfect or the day collapses, but the quiet kind that tells the nervous system, something in my life still responds when I act. Outside there are messages you cannot control, bills you did not plan for, people who misunderstand you, news cycles that keep mutating, expectations that change while you are still trying to meet the old ones. Outside, the world can feel like a machine with too many moving parts and no user manual. But inside your room, one small thing can still obey cause and effect. You pick up the glass and the table becomes clear. You fold the shirt and the chair stops accusing you. You wipe the counter, and a small piece of reality becomes responsive again. That matters more than people realize. The psychological framework of locus of control describes the difference between feeling that life happens to you and feeling that your actions can influence outcomes. People with a stronger internal locus of control tend to experience lower anxiety and higher resilience. And organizing your physical space is one of the most concrete ways to rehearse that belief. Not by thinking positive thoughts, by giving your brain proof, a beginning, a middle, an end. One visible data point that says, when I move, something changes. And that brings us to the piece that actually explains everything: identity. Identity is where the whole system stops being about cleaning and starts being about self-recognition. Because at first the action feels external. You put one plate away, you clear one corner, you throw out one thing you have been stepping around for 3 days. And in the beginning it feels small enough to be almost insulting. Like your life is too complicated for something that basic to matter. But the brain does not only record the size of the action, it records the meaning of the action. Every time you restore one small piece of order, your nervous system receives evidence. Every time you finish a tiny physical loop, your self-concept gets one more data point. Every time you do the thing you said you would do, even if the thing is just returning a cup to the sink, you reduce the gap between the person you imagine being and the person your behavior keeps proving. That gap matters. Identity-based habit theory explains that behavior becomes more stable when it starts aligning with who you believe you are. And cognitive dissonance research points to something equally important. When your actions and self-image conflict for too long, the mind starts feeling tension and tries to resolve it. So if you keep saying, "I want to be the kind of person who has my life together," but your physical environment keeps showing you unfinished loops, your brain has to hold that contradiction. And contradictions are expensive, but when you start with one repeatable action, the system begins to update. Every time you reset the desk, you are not just resetting the desk. You are teaching your brain, "I am someone who returns things to baseline." Every time you clear the floor, you are not just clearing the floor. You are teaching your nervous system, I am someone who does not abandon myself inside chaos. Every time you complete a small task with a visible end, you are creating proof that does not need motivation to be convincing. And enough proof becomes identity. Enough identity becomes automation. And automation is the line most people mistake for discipline. But wait, there is a layer to this that most conversations skip entirely: the morning. That moment when your eyes open, your phone is still face down, and your hand almost reaches for it, before your body has even decided what kind of day it is going to be. That moment matters because your biology is already online. Natural early morning cortisol spikes create a window where the brain is more alert, more focused, and more sensitive to pattern formation. Neurological researchers describe this early activation as part of the body's wake-up system. And when you use that state for a tiny completed action, you are not just cleaning. You are programming momentum. You make the bed. You put yesterday's glass in the sink. You clear the one object that your eyes would have hit first. And the brain gets a completion loop before the day has had time to become complicated. That loop matters because completion has chemistry. When a task has a clear beginning, middle, and end, the nervous system receives a clean signal: this is finished. The small reward that follows helps reinforce the neural pathway. Dopamine is not only about pleasure, it is also about learning what is worth repeating. So the clean person is not waking up with heroic willpower. They are often using the brain's own morning update cycle. Low friction, clear action, fast completion. A small win installed before the outside world starts sending error messages. Now, I want to be straightforward with you about something. You may be thinking, but I am just not that kind of person. You may look at the chair with clothes on it, the desk with old cups, the drawer that no longer closes smoothly, and think the room is giving you a diagnosis: messy, undisciplined, behind, lazy. But your environment is not a moral verdict. It is often an emotional printout. Research published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people who described their homes as cluttered showed higher baseline cortisol levels throughout the day, compared to people who described their homes as restful. Cortisol is not shame, it is stress physiology. So if your space feels chaotic and your body feels tense inside it, that does not mean you are weak. It may mean your nervous system is living in a room that keeps asking it to keep score. The sock by the bed, the unopened package, the pile you promised yourself you would handle. The drawer that becomes a little mechanical failure every time you pull it. Each one says, not done yet. And the brain is not built to ignore infinite not done yets without cost. This is why telling yourself to just be more disciplined often fails. Discipline still requires conscious energy. And conscious energy is a finite resource. Automation is different. Automation means the behavior has been repeated enough times that it no longer needs a dramatic internal negotiation. It no longer has to pass through the courtroom of mood, shame, resistance, and self-criticism. It simply runs. A 2009 study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that the average time for a new behavior to become automatic was 66 days, not the popular 21-day myth. That is important because many people quit at the exact moment they think they should already be transformed. They try for 2 weeks, they miss a day, they look around and say, see, I knew I could not change. But the research says the system may still be compiling, not broken, not failed, not proof that you lack discipline, just not automatic yet. And here is what does not get said enough about this. Cleaning can become a way of regulating your nervous system without having to explain your nervous system to anyone. There is something specific that happens when your hand closes around the object you have been avoiding. The receipt, the shirt, the plate, the small piece of clutter that somehow became louder every time you walked past it. At first, your body may resist, your shoulders tighten, your breath gets shallow. Your mind tries to escape into something easier, something digital, something that does not ask for a beginning, a middle, and an end. But when you stay with the action long enough to complete it, the body receives a different kind of message. The loop closes, the signal resolves, the room gives you feedback you can see. This is why behavioral activation is such an important clinical psychology framework. It recognizes that action can shift emotional state, especially when the nervous system is stuck in anxiety, avoidance, or low energy paralysis. You do not always think your way into movement. Sometimes you move your way into a different emotional state. You wash the cup and the sink changes. You take out the trash and the air changes. You clear the table and the room stops broadcasting quite so much unfinished information. And the strange thing is that the task does not have to be huge to matter. In fact, huge tasks often overload the same system you are trying to soothe. The brain does not need a cinematic life transformation at 7:12 in the morning. It needs one clean signal, one visible completion, one small machine in the environment that starts working again. That is why the most powerful version of this habit is usually not a dramatic cleaning marathon. where you exhaust yourself and disappear from the system for another month. It is smaller, more repeatable, less glamorous, a plate returned, a surface cleared, a bed made badly but made, a drawer closed without force, a floor with one less obstacle waiting for your foot in the dark. These things sound ordinary until you understand what they are doing beneath the surface. They are lowering the number of open loops your nervous system has to track. They are reducing the visual competition inside your attention. They are giving your brain repeated evidence that action is still possible. And maybe most importantly, they are teaching your body that order does not have to arrive through punishment. It can arrive through care. You are not wired wrong. You are not broken because clutter affects you. You are not weak because a messy room makes your thoughts feel heavier. You are a human nervous system living inside an environment, and that environment is constantly sending signals. Some signals drain you, some signals stabilize you. And when you begin to clean, even in the smallest possible way, you are not trying to become a perfect person. You are building a system that makes your own mind easier to live inside. That is the real psychology of people who keep their space clean. They are not always more motivated. They are not always more disciplined. They are not always naturally better at life. Many of them have simply repeated the same small reset enough times that the behavior stopped needing a speech, a mood, or a crisis. It became automatic. A room can become a machine that runs against you, or it can become a machine that quietly supports you. And the difference often begins with one small action that has an end. If this landed somewhere real for you today, I'd really appreciate you subscribing to Minimalist Psychology. And maybe after this video, do not try to fix your whole life. Just close one loop, one object, one surface, one visible proof that when you move, something changes.